Welcome to the Vision Perfect video trainer for Viper Leaderboard. This video will demonstrate how to download and install Viper Leaderboard, set it up for display on plasmas in your facility, and provide initial training for the product. Viper Leaderboard is a powerful program to enable very high quality output from your Viper Tournament Manager to plasma or LCD TVs or to a projection system in your facility. Viper Leaderboard can display starting time or starting hole information prior to an event, live leaderboards during an event if you have a GPS system to capture live scores, and can display scoreboards at the end of an event. With manual scoring, you can start a scoreboard display, and as our scores are being entered into Viper, they will automatically update on the scoreboard, resorting for place each time it cycles through the field. All displays also provide the ability to include a slideshow with the event, or with multiple event displays. You can easily download the Viper Leaderboard installer from the Vision Perfect website. You can browse to the www.visionperfect.com, or from within Viper itself, go to Help, go to visionperfect.com and select Updates, and scroll down the Updates page when it opens to the Viper Leaderboard section, where you'll see the version 11.0.45 for the latest Viper Leaderboard installer. If you just click on this 11.0.45, it will start a download process, and you can select Save to save the installer, and a window will open to enable you to tell the program where to save it. You need to save it in a location where you can find it, and a good place to put it would be in the VP Golf Downloads folder, and just save it there. The name of the file that you'll be looking for once it downloads is called ViPerLBSetupTrain. Just click Save to save it there, and it will start downloading that installer. Once the installer downloads, you can just double click on it to start the installer. If it asks for a password, the password would be VPUser, and just follow the steps to do a default installation. You should always install any software as the administrator. So depending on the version of Windows operating system that you have, you either need to log on as administrator, or you can right-click on that downloaded file and select Run as Administrator. Once the download has completed, you can click the Open Folder button, or browse to that location and find your file, ViperLeaderboardSetup.exe, and double-click on it to start the installer. If you have any prior versions of Viper Leaderboard installed on the machine, or VP Leaderboard, you should uninstall these prior to installing the new Viper Leaderboard. From the website, you should also click the text that says "Click here to open the Viper Leaderboard user guide for printing," which will open a complete user guide for Viper Leaderboard to describe how to use the software and how to configure it for connecting to your plasma screens. At the end of the document, there is a section that describes how to configure Viper Leaderboard connecting to remote plasma screens or LCD screens. There are a number of different ways to have Viper Leaderboard drive your plasma LCD displays. The simplest which would be to just install it on a laptop that's got a VGA out port, where the laptop can connect directly to the plasma screen, and the laptop would have the ability through a wireless connection or a hardware connection to connect to the Viper Tournament Manager database, which may be at on another machine or on a file server. You can also install on a machine that would be directly driving the plasma LCD displays and would be connected to the Viper database through a network connection. And you can also install it on any desktop PC that's got a dual video head card to be able to use Viper at the same time the VP Leaderboard program is running, which would be similar to how a laptop would work. You can start the leaderboard display, drag the display off the screen onto the plasma screens, use the Control-M hotkey, which is described in the user guide, to maximize the display to fill the screen. Even though it may be in another room and you can't see it, it will fill the screen. And then you would still have the desktop PC or the laptop PC available to you to enter scores. And this schematic at the end of the user guide describes how to connect to remote PCs. There are a couple of fairly inexpensive pieces of equipment that you can buy that are VGA splitter extenders, which will take the VGA signal coming out of either the laptop or a desktop PC with a dual head video card, using a standard VGA monitor cable connecting to the splitter extender. Then the signal can be run using standard coax cable, Ethernet cable, to extend up to 600 feet to the plasma screen, where it goes back into a remote unit which converts the Cat5 Ethernet cable signal back into VGA, and a standard VGA cable would then connect from the remote unit to the plasma screen. And these splitter extenders can be used to split the signal up to 4 times with no loss, up to 600 feet to each machine. And you can buy machines would also, or splitter extenders would also extend it up to 8 or 16 times if you wanted to drive more than 4 plasma screens. You can order this splitter extender equipment from the VisionPerfect website from the equipment supply order page, and as you can see, the equipment is fairly inexpensive. The 4-way splitter extender is only $140, and the remote units, to which one is required for each plasma screen that you connect to, are $135. Once you have Viper Leaderboard installed, it will place an icon on your desktop called Viper Leaderboard. It also places a startup item under All Programs VisionPerfect Software for Viper Leaderboard. But just double-click on the icon on the desktop to start the application. And when Viper Leaderboard starts up the first time, it will come up with a prompt asking you where the database is located. Now, the database could be located on the same machine if you're just installing on a laptop or a machine that already has Viper Tournament Manager on it. Or you may have a shared database location for Viper Tournament Manager, and you need to browse to that location to point to it. You say OK to that, another screen will open to ask you to locate the database. First thing you need to do is set the source, to set whether it's a SQL or Access database. And most installations are Access, however there is a new SQL version of Viper Tournament Manager coming out. Select whichever source it is, and then if it's an Access database, you need to point to it on the right side of the screen. The left side of the screen would be for the SQL Server database setup. For an Access database, click the Browse button and browse to the location where the database is. So using your browser, you can browse to whatever location the database is at. Once it's identified, just say OK to store that database location in Viper Leaderboard. And you need to restart the application. Restart Viper, a screen will come up to ask you if you want to do a leaderboard display, scoreboard display, starting board display, or slideshow. And we'll just show a few capabilities with this video. The user guide should be reviewed to determine how to set up each type of a board and the options associated with each type of board. Overview, we're going to review scoreboard display and then take a look at the slideshow. So if we select the scoreboard display and say OK, a event selector screen will open. And the event selector screen will look at, initially, the events within about a 14-day range. And if there are no events in your database in a 14-day range, clicking Show All Events will change the display selector to show all of the events in your database, your Viper Tournament Manager database. So you can select an event, select which round that you're displaying, or the total of all of the rounds, and then select Proceed to get a screen where you can select whether you're going to sort the scores by the gross scores or the net scores. Saying OK will then start the display. Once the display starts up, then you can, on your for a brief idea of functionality, right-clicking on the screen will bring up a menu option for being able to change the text fields that can be added to a report, the graphics fields that can be added to a report, and there are 2 graphics fields that can be added. The top header in this case, showing the 2011 annual golf outing, is a graphic that's been added to the report, one of the graphics. You can have a ticker of text running across the screen with whatever text you want to input. The background graphic properties are to select the background for the display. In this case, it would be the golf photographs that are in the background. You can add the event name to the property, and the grid is the actual scoring grid. So selecting the grid properties, you'll see that there are multiple columns that can be selected for the display. And in this case, we've only got the player's name selected, the net score, and the net place selected. You can select as many columns as you want, and for each column that is selected, choosing the Edit button will allow you to change the header text that's being used above the column, and the Select selector will open up a set of fields that will allow you to set the fonts and the colors and set the fonts for both the header of the column and the column text itself. And the column text gives you the additional option to put a border around the column and set the border color and the border size. So there are a number of options for how the player grid within the display can be configured. You also have the option to choose whether you want the grid to just scroll from bottom up to top, or manual. It allows you to use up and down keys to manually change the scrolling between the teams or players. And the other transition option selection gives you up to, there are 11 different options that you can choose for how one grid of teams transitions to the next grid of teams. And you can set the speed of the transition, how many records that you're going to display at a time. In this case, teams. We're selecting 3 teams at a time, and how long each display group of records stays on the screen before it transitions to the next one. So these are different methods for the transitions, whether the one group of players will dissolve and then speckle back into view, random bars, whether they're going to slide off the screen, slide back on. All these are described in more detail in the user guide. You also have the option when you're displaying the teams within the grid to display the names vertically, first name beside last name, actually the players' names, the first player next to the second player on the team, next to the third player on the team, horizontally side by side, or vertically one team player on top of the other. In this case we've got vertically selected. And then once you have made grid changes or settings, you can just select Save to save any new settings. Once you've created a display the way that you want for a particular type of outing, there is an option to save your layout, and that the layout is basically the design of the screen that you're working with, and you can save a new layout or save it to an existing name, and that enables you to select a layout for a display, and you can select from any layouts that you have created. And you can have multiple layouts. You may have one for a 4-person team event, a different type for an individual event, and so on. That's what layouts are about. Viper Leaderboard also enables you to create a slideshow, which actually can run standalone, or be added to any board display type. So, to create a slideshow, you just select Slideshow initially, and when the screen opens, right-clicking on the screen will take you into the slideshow setup. And similar to the other type of graphics setup screens, you can select any graphic slide that you want by choose browsing and picking one at a time, or all graphics selectors, whether it's within the grid for graphics 1 or 2 or the slideshow, will allow you to select all of the files that you've placed in a folder. So this gives you a way to rapidly select graphics for a display where you may have taken a lot of digital photos and you want to just be displaying those photos. You can simply select the photo and the utility will just load all of the files that are in that folder. Once the files have been loaded, checking the all images will select all of the files. You also have the option to rearrange the files if you want by using the up and down arrow, selecting a file to change the order. And you can set the time that each slide will stay up. Selecting Save will then start and run the slideshow. So once you've created a slideshow, you can actually add that slideshow to any board display type, leaderboard, scoreboard, or starting board. And the way that you do that is you select the board type that you're going to be running, choose OK, and when the event selector screen opens, you'll see that there's a multi-event setup selection. That's how you add a slideshow to any display. Viper Leaderboard actually has the ability to run multiple events at the same time. That's part of what multiple event setup is about. If you had 2 or 3 events on the same day, you can actually select all 3 of those events, and it'll just scroll through the scores of one event, then go to the next event, scroll through the scores, and so on. And if a slideshow is added, it would then run the slideshow and then loop back through them all again. But the multi-event setup is also the way that you add a slideshow to a single event. So whether you're doing a current event or you need to display all events, you need to select one or the other and then go to the multiple event setup. all the events that are available to you then will appear in the top list, and you can choose one or more events to be included in your slideshow. And once you've selected those events, you can choose from this screen whether they're going to be sorted by gross or net and which layout will be used for the display. And once you've selected your events from multi-event display, you just give it a name. And choose whether or not the slideshow is going to be included. And if you are only doing a single event, then you would just choose your single event that you're going to display, and for your single event, again, set the sort options and the layout that's going to be used for that event, and then check the include in the slideshow and save that, which will put it in your group event list. So even though it's only a single event, it's got the slideshow added to it. It's part of the group events. To run a group events, you just select the group event